They changed the locks before I even got home. No warning, no explanation, just silence. The key I carried for 10 years, the one I thought meant something, didn't fit anymore. I stood there like a fool, jiggling metal in a lock that no longer recognized me. That door had seen every version of me. The child, the caretaker, the afterthought. But now, it wouldn't open. Not for me. Not ever again. They didn't even wait for me to knock. My key didn't fit anymore. My name didn't fit anymore. He opened the door like I was a delivery. Not his daughter. Not someone he once called family. He blinked. No smile, no warmth. Just stillness. It was the way he looked at me. Like I was interrupting something. Like I was intruding on a life that no longer included me. No questions. No concern. His eyes were stone, but I swear I saw relief hiding in the cracks. Like they'd been waiting for this moment. He didn't have to say a word. Didn't have to say, His face told me everything. You don't belong here. I searched for her. My mother. Because she always softened him. She always stood in the middle, didn't she? The mediator, the excuse maker, the one who smoothed things over. But this time, she wouldn't even look at me. Her eyes were fixed on the floor, like I was something shameful. Like seeing me would make it real. No hug, no tears, just distance. She didn't cry, she didn't speak. She just turned her back. And that was louder than anything else. That's when I saw it. The suitcase zipped. Neat. Like I was going on vacation, only it wasn't mine. I hadn't packed it. But somehow, everything I ever owned was in it. Every shirt, every book, even the photo frame I kept on my nightstand, the one with all of us. Smiling. It wasn't a goodbye. It was a handoff. A final act of dismissal. Like I was a tenant whose lease had expired. Like they had cleared out the room and scrubbed my name from the walls. I didn't pack that bag. But they packed it like they'd been planning this for weeks. I asked why. Not with anger, just confusion. Because I couldn't understand how love could turn into exile so easily. That's when my mother said it. So calm, so rehearsed. You're not part of this family anymore? That was it. Not a scream, not a fight, just a line, like she was canceling a subscription. Like I'd failed some invisible test. I waited for someone to say it was a joke, but all I heard was the wind, and the lock clicking shut behind me. I stood there, frozen. Not from the cold, from the weight. The realization that I had nowhere to go. No one was coming to fix it. No one was going to say my name. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I didn't beg. Because something inside me, something I didn't even know I had, shattered. But it didn't fall. It didn't break into pieces. It hardened. Quiet. Sharp. Clean. They thought they buried me, but they just planted something. Cold. And one day I'd grow back. But not the same. I wasn't loud. I wasn't difficult. I didn't slam doors or scream, "You don't understand me," like kids in movies do. I was quiet. I followed the rules. I didn't ask for much. Straight A's. Dinner on the table when mom got tired. Laundry folded, groceries stocked, lights turned off before bed. I was there, always. Not seen, not celebrated, just expected. When my brother forgot his homework, I did it for him. When dad got too drunk to drive, I lied for him. When mom cried in the kitchen, I cleaned up before she could see her reflection. They never had to ask. I just showed up. Every time. And somehow, that made me forgettable. There were schools I could have gone to, colleges that wanted me. Full, rides, out-of-state offers, but I stayed. Because we need you here. Because Daniel needs your support. Because family comes first. So I let my dreams die slowly, one acceptance letter at a time. One shift after another at the diner. I worked. 2 jobs. Paid part of the rent without ever seeing my name on the lease. Gave up my weekend so my brother could party. They called him gifted. but I watched him coast while I broke myself into pieces to hold everything together. He got everything handed to him. I handed everything away. At first, I laughed with them when they joked that I was too serious, when they called me the extra one, when Dad said, "Are you sure you weren't switched at birth?" It was funny until it wasn't, until the laughter didn't reach their eyes, until Mom stopped saying, "She's just tired," and started saying, "She's always like this." I remember the shift. Not a moment, just a feeling. Dinner conversations where I wasn't included. Family photos where I was the last to be called. Comments that started small but landed like accusations. "You're too emotional. You always ruin the mood. You take everything personally." It wasn't just what they said. It was how they said it, like it had always been true. Daniel, the golden boy. He could do no wrong. Even when he did, they found a way to make it my fault. I caught him stealing from Mom's wallet once, told her. She looked at me like I'd slapped her, then told me to stop causing trouble. Daniel said I was jealous, said I needed help, and they believed him. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst came later. The night he told our parents I tried to seduce his friend. A lie, vicious, calculated. I wasn't even in the room when it happened. But suddenly, eyes wouldn't meet mine. Dinner was quiet. The air was different. I wasn't the daughter anymore. I was a liability. That night, something in the air changed, like they were already packing their bags, just waiting for me to leave. It started small. A friend stopped texting back, then another. Then, silence. Mom whispered behind doors. Dad gave short answers. Daniel smiled more, but never at me. Family outings happened without me. Plans were made, vacations booked, and no one thought to tell me. At first, I blamed myself. Maybe I was too dramatic, too quiet, too much. I stared at my phone longer than I'd like to admit, scrolled past pictures I wasn't in, listened through walls I was never invited to pass, and slowly, I stopped showing up. You don't realize you're being erased until there's no one left who sees you. My birthday came and went. No cake, no message, not even a lie. It was just another day. To them. Another day I didn't matter, but what broke me wasn't the silence. It was the opportunity I'd been praying for, a job offer, my way out. I was excited, terrified, and then nothing. They never called back. No explanation. Until I overheard. Mom talking on the phone. She's not ready. She's too unstable. She still needs us. That was it. The moment I knew, they weren't scared I'd fall. They were scared I'd leave and never come back. I stopped asking for love. Then I stopped asking for anything. Then they took everything else too. I had hope. For the first time in years, I had hope. The job interview went well. A chance to build something for myself. A future, finally mine. I walked up the driveway, rehearsing how I'd tell them. That I'd be moving soon, that I was ready. Then I saw the suitcase. It sat on the porch, zipped, neat, waiting. My key didn't fit. I twisted it harder. My hands started shaking. The lock wouldn't turn. I knocked. Footsteps. Then the door cracked open. My father stood there, eyes dull, emotionless. Behind him, my brother smirked. I thought I was walking into my home. I didn't know I was walking into my execution. My mother's voice cut through the silence. Go. I blinked, confused. Then she said it, the words he put in her mouth. You've been unstable. I laughed, because it was absurd. Unstable? Me? She went on. They had to make a choice. They couldn't ignore the signs. Signs? I searched my father's face for something, anything, but he just nodded. That's when I realized they believed him. They believed my brother, whatever he told them, Whatever lies he whispered late at night, they swallowed it whole. They weren't kicking me out today. They had let me go months ago. I just didn't know it yet. I didn't yell. I should have. I should have screamed. Instead, I whispered, "Please, just listen." I wasn't angry. I was begging for my mother to look at me, really look at me, for my father to say my name like it still mattered, for my brother to stop smiling like he had already won. I waited for someone to snap out of it, to shake their heads and say, "Wait, this doesn't make sense." No, one did. My mother turned away first, then my father. The door closed, and I understood. I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was an orphan before I even walked away. I spent the first night outside, not in some dramatic, tragic way, just sitting. The streetlights buzzed. My hands were too cold to shake. I stared at my phone. No missed calls, no texts. The second night, I crashed at a friend's place. By the third night, her parents made excuses. By the fourth, I had nowhere to go. I lost my job next. Rumors spread fast. Then it was motels, shelters, then nothing. It happens slowly. You don't just wake up homeless. You fade. You lose little pieces of yourself until there's nothing left. Weeks later, I tried to reach them, just once. Not to beg, not to come back, just to exist again. But I didn't. My name, gone from family records, photos, disappeared from albums. Even my old school called them for verification. They said I didn't live there anymore. That was the part. That broke me. Not the loss. Not even the betrayal. It was the realization that they weren't mourning me. They lost nothing when they lost me. And that did something to me. I should have died out there. But life is funny. It gives you just enough to keep breathing. A month in, I ran into someone, a teacher from high school. He remembered me, not as a failure, not as a runaway, as someone who used to be brilliant. Before they tore me down, he asked what happened. I lied. He offered me a job, admin work, nothing fancy. But it was something, and for the first time in years, I said yes. The world might have forgotten me, but I wasn't done yet. I was rebuilding, slowly, until the bank denied my application. Credit check failed. Debt under my name. Loans, late payments. Money I never borrowed. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Then I saw the signature. Daniel. My brother didn't just exile me, he used me. He stole more than my home. He stole my future. I sat there, staring at the paperwork, and something inside me snapped. I wasn't sad. I wasn't lost. I was done. This wasn't over. Not even close. 10 years. That's how long it took. 10 years to rebuild a life they tried to erase. 10 years to turn silence into strategy. 10 years. To become a woman they wouldn't even recognize. I came back. But not as their daughter. I had a different name now. A tech consultancy with government contracts. An apartment with more rooms than people. A life they didn't know I built while they were pretending I never existed. I watched them from a distance. Daniel still played king, real estate mogul, local hero. My mother, now a life coach, giving advice she never lived by. My father, still silent, always was. They walked around proud, untouchable, like the past had never happened. But I remembered every word, every look. Every time they shut the door on me and called it discipline, they erased me from their lives. Now I'm the shadow standing over theirs, and they never even saw it coming. Daniel built his world on lies, so I tore it down, one document at a time. First, it was a forged signature I exposed. Then a hidden account. Then a land deal that never existed. I didn't go after him publicly. Not yet. I made it slow, quiet, precise, an anonymous whistleblower email here, a triggered audit there. I fed the fire drop by drop until it couldn't be ignored. He started losing contracts, then clients. Then the whispers started. Is he under investigation? Was it fraud? He was too proud to notice at first, too arrogant to imagine someone was dismantling him from the inside. But I watched it happen. Watched the confidence drain from his face during press interviews. Watched the cracks widen until they swallowed everything he built. Revenge isn't about destruction. It's about control. And right now, I own his fear. She called herself a mentor to women, built a following off other people's pain, preached resilience, healing, clarity, the same woman who gaslit her own daughter into silence. So I gave her the spotlight she craved, just turned around. I created a fake startup, offered her a speaking deal, branded her as our lead mindset coach. She jumped. No hesitation. Every call, every recording, every toxic pearl of wisdom. I documented it all. She mocked trauma, blamed survivors, preached accountability to people she never listened to. Then I leaked it. Not all at once. Just enough for people to start asking questions. Then the clients left. Then the sponsors pulled out. And suddenly, the woman who once convinced the world I was unstable was being called unstable herself. She spent years convincing people I was broken. Now the world sees the truth about her instead. Poetic, isn't it? It wasn't just a house. It was everything I was supposed to belong to. The hallway where I learned to walk, the kitchen where I learned to cook, the door they slammed shut and never reopened. I bought it, quietly, through a third party. Waited until the mortgage was past due, just enough. Then I stepped in, paid it in full, took control, and sent them a letter. No signature, no return address. Just 6 words, "You're not part of this house anymore." I watched from my car as they opened it. My mother dropped to the porch, sobbing. Daniel screamed, threw something across the yard. My father? He didn't even flinch. He just stared at the ground like it finally made sense. This wasn't revenge. This was balance being restored. When it all started collapsing, they finally reached out. Daniel begged. Said he was just a kid. Didn't know better. My mother called it a misunderstanding. Said they were scared. That I misread everything. And my father said nothing. He sat there staring into his hands. The same way he did the day they shut the door on me. They wanted a meeting. One chance to talk. So I gave it to them. We sat across from each other. 3 ghosts and the girl they tried to bury. But I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't need to. They don't want me back. They just want their lives back. Too bad. I waited for them to speak first. They didn't. So I did. I looked my mother in the eyes. No hate, no fire, just clarity. You didn't break me, I said. You made me ruthless. And in that moment, I think she finally understood. Not what she did, but what she lost. Because I was never coming back. Not to this table, not to this family, not to that version of myself. They threw me away like I was nothing. Now they know what nothing really feels like. I stood up, and I walked away. The final strike wasn't personal. It was public. The fraud charges stuck. Daniel's arrest made headlines. My mother's audio leaked. Clips of her mocking trauma, blaming victims, cursing behind closed doors. Her brand crumbled. Her book deal got canceled. Her sponsors vanished. And my father, the one who never spoke? His silence cost him everything. The same community that turned on me, turned on them. The same whispers that buried me, buried them. They left me with nothing. Now they have less than that. No names, no careers, no family, just shame. And the worst part? They still don't understand where it all began. But I do. It began the day they changed the locks, and I promised myself, one day I'd return, to make sure they could never lock another door again. Daniel's in prison. Not a county slap on the wrist sentence. Real time, real charges, real consequences. My mother? Her name's been scrubbed from her own brand. Nobody wants advice from the woman who called trauma an excuse. And my father, he's still there. But no one calls, no one waves. Even the neighbors stopped pretending they didn't see. They lost everything: status, security, respect, and yet, I didn't touch a single one of those things directly. I didn't take their lives. I just took back mine. The rest? They destroyed on their own. People think revenge ends with a grand finale. A mic drop, a standing ovation. But the truth? It's quieter than that. I have the business, the reputation, the freedom, but I don't celebrate. I don't toast. I don't post it online for the world to see. I wake up early, make my own coffee, and stare at the quiet like it's the only thing I trust anymore. I don't smile much, but I sleep, and somehow, that's enough. One last visit. I told myself it didn't matter, but I went anyway. The house was gone, leveled, flattened, overgrown, with weeds. The address still shows up on GPS. But what stood there is gone. There's no rage, no sting, just stillness. A clean kind of silence. The house they threw me out of is gone, but I'm still here, I'm still standing, and that's the difference. I carried it for years, through shelters, train stations, job interviews, a photo of a girl between two parents, all of them smiling, frozen in a lie. I held it like it meant something, like proof I used to belong somewhere. But staring at it now, I don't see family, I see fiction. So I burn it. Not because I'm angry, not because I want to forget, but because that girl, she doesn't exist anymore. I kept that photo longer than I kept the memory. It was time. They shut me out. Changed the locks. Tried to rewrite my story without me. But they forgot. I wasn't born to knock. I was meant to build. And now, I built the door. I own the key, and I don't need them on the other side. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment and share your thoughts. Subscribe to Twisted Karma for more true-to-life stories of betrayal, transformation, and quiet revenge. Because sometimes the best closure is becoming the person they never saw coming. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment and share your thoughts. Subscribe to Twisted Karma for more true-to-life stories of betrayal, transformation, and quiet revenge. Because sometimes the best closure is becoming the person they never saw coming.